Alex's world shifted the day his father died. It was sudden, unexpected. The loss was profound. As Alex navigated the raw, immediate pain, he found himself lost in a maze of emotions. He felt overwhelmed by sadness, anger, and confusion. Grief, he discovered, was a complex and deeply personal experience. Grief, Alex learned, was not a linear process. There were good days and bad days, moments of peace followed by waves of intense sorrow. He realized that understanding his grief and allowing himself to feel it fully was crucial to healing. This marked the beginning of Alex's journey through loss, a journey that led him to explore the multifaceted nature of grief. Grief, a word often uttered with a heavy heart, carries a weight that transcends simple sadness. It is a profound emotional response that can leave us feeling lost and overwhelmed. It's a complex tapestry of emotions woven together, a response to loss that touches every aspect of our being. From the initial shock and denial to the waves of anger, bargaining, and deep sadness, grief is a journey that each person navigates in their own unique way. The very word grief speaks to its intricate nature. It is not just a single emotion, but a collection of feelings that can ebb and flow, sometimes catching us off guard. Derived from the old French word grève, meaning to burden, grief is a heavy cloak we wear, a burden we bear in the wake of loss. This etymology highlights the weight and significance of grief, reminding us that it is a natural response to losing something or someone dear to us. Yet within this burden lies the potential for growth and transformation. Just as a barren branch can blossom into a beautiful flower, grief can lead us to new understandings and deeper connections with ourselves and others. Grief, though painful, is a testament to the depth of our love and the significance of our connections. It is a reflection of the bonds we have formed and the impact that others have had on our lives. It's a reminder of the preciousness of life and the inevitability of change. The changing seasons symbolize the cycles of life, death, and rebirth, reminding us that while grief is a part of our journey, it is not the end. Understanding the etymology of grief allows us to approach it not as something to be avoided, but as a natural, albeit challenging, part of the human experience. By embracing our grief, we can find a path to healing and acceptance, recognizing that it is through our pain that we often find our greatest strength and resilience. Author and grief expert Francis Weller offers a profound framework for understanding the different facets of grief through his 5 gates of grief. These gates serve as a guide, helping individuals navigate the complex and often overwhelming emotions that accompany loss. These gates, he suggests, are not linear stages, but rather doorways through which we move as we process loss. Each gate represents a different aspect of grief, and we may find ourselves revisiting them multiple times as we journey through our healing process. Alex found solace in Weller's wisdom, recognizing his own experiences reflected in the gates. He realized that his feelings were valid and that he was not alone in his grief. The 5 gates provided him with a language to articulate his pain and a map to navigate his sorrow. There was the gate of everything familiar is lost, where Alex grappled with the absence of his father and the void left in his life. This gate represents the profound sense of loss that comes when someone we love is no longer present. Alex found himself constantly reminded of his father's absence in the little things, the empty chair at the dinner table, the silence where his father's laughter used to be. He encountered the gate of anger, rage and blame, feeling frustration and questioning the unfairness of it all. This gate is where the raw, unfiltered emotions of grief come to the surface. Alex felt a deep sense of injustice and often found himself asking, why him? Why now? The anger was a natural response to the pain he was experiencing. Through the gate of chaos, Alex experienced the disorientation and upheaval that loss brings. This gate is characterized by a sense of confusion and a feeling of being unmoored. Alex's life felt like it was in disarray, and he struggled to find his footing in a world that had been irrevocably changed. He found himself at the gate of sadness and sorrow, allowing himself to fully feel the depths of his grief. This gate is where the profound sadness of loss is felt most acutely. Alex allowed himself to cry, to mourn, and to acknowledge the deep pain that came with his father's passing. It was a necessary step in his healing process. Finally, he came to the gate of reconciliation and gratitude, where he began to integrate his loss and find a sense of peace. This gate represents the acceptance of loss and the ability to find gratitude for the time shared with the loved one. Alex started to remember his father with a sense of appreciation rather than just pain. He found moments of peace in nature, in quiet reflection, and in the memories that brought a smile to his face. Through this journey, Alex learned that grief is not something to be overcome, but something to be integrated into the fabric of his life, allowing him to move forward with a deeper understanding of love and loss. Section 4. Mapping the terrain, the loss history graph. As Alex delved deeper into his grief journey, he discovered a valuable tool, the loss history graph. This graph wasn't just a simple chart, it was a comprehensive visual representation of his life's most significant losses. Each point on the graph marked a moment of pain, a moment of change, and a moment of reflection. This visual representation of an individual's lifetime of losses provided a powerful means of understanding recurring patterns and the cumulative impact of grief. By seeing his losses laid out in front of him, Alex could identify periods of intense grief and moments of relative calm. It was like looking at a map of his emotional landscape. By plotting significant losses on a timeline, Alex gained insights into how past experiences might be influencing his present grief. He could see how the loss of a job, the end of a relationship, and the death of loved ones were interconnected. Each event didn't just stand alone. It was part of a larger narrative of his life. He realized that unresolved grief from the earlier loss of his beloved grandmother had resurfaced, amplifying the pain of his father's death. This connection was something he hadn't fully understood before. The graph allowed him to see that his current grief was not just about his father, but was also tied to the lingering sadness from his grandmother's passing. The loss. History graph helped Alex recognize that grief is not always isolated to a single event, but can be influenced by a lifetime of experiences. It showed him that his emotional responses were cumulative, building upon each other over time. This realization was both daunting and enlightening. This understanding empowered him to address not just his current grief, but also any unresolved grief from the past. With this newfound perspective, Alex felt a sense of control over his emotional journey. He began to see his grief not as a series of isolated incidents, but as a continuous thread woven through his life. This empowered him to take proactive steps in his healing process, seeking therapy, talking to loved ones, and finding ways to honor both his father and his grandmother. The loss history graph became a crucial tool in his path to emotional recovery, offering clarity and a sense of direction in the midst of his sorrow. Section 5. Experiencing grief, a hands-on approach. Traditional models of grief often emphasize cognitive understanding and emotional processing. However, Alex discovered the power of an experiential approach, engaging with his grief through creative expression, rituals, and meaningful activities that honored his father's memory. He found solace in writing poetry, expressing his raw emotions through verse. He created a photo album filled with cherished memories, revisiting happy times and celebrating his father's life. Alex's hands-on approach allowed him to connect with his grief in a tangible way, channeling his emotions into creative outlets that brought comfort and healing. Section 6. Grief as Action. Jenkinson's perspective. Stephen Jenkinson, a renowned author and teacher on grief and dying, offers a unique perspective on grief as an active process. He challenges the notion of grief as something to be worked through or moved on from, and instead encourages us to dive into our grief, to fully immerse ourselves in the experience. Alex resonated with Jenkinson's philosophy, recognizing that grief was not a passive state, but a call to action, an invitation to show up fully for his pain. He realized that true healing lay not in bypassing his grief, but in leaning into it, allowing himself to be transformed by the experience. This active approach to grief empowered Alex to engage with his loss in a more conscious and deliberate way.